Hey gang, we have this little ceramic Mrs. Claus, like Santa Claus, outside our apartment door. We wanted a gnome, so we went to a thrift store and somehow there were no gnomes, but there was Mrs. Claus. And now for me and for some of the guests at this apartment, it's customary to tap Mrs. Claus on the head and say, "Thank you, Mrs. Claus," as you enter, as a sort of... It's like saying thank you for safe travels back home, something like that. And I like to call this a vessel for gratitude. There's also, at the complete opposite side of the hallway, a little luchador fellow, I call him. So it's as though there's a Dia de los Muertos versus Christmas thing going on just permanently in our apartment hallway on both ends. I think that's kind of funny. I call Mrs. Claus a vessel for gratitude because it doesn't really matter what the vessel is, it's the gratitude that matters. There's opportunities to say thank you to the world around you all the time. And I think it's more important that people see this. I think it would help people in their lives to have more opportunities for gratitude. I'm less concerned with what that vessel is. Now, you could thank God, you could thank Christ, you could thank the universe. I think it's more important to start by saying thank you to anything, to your parents for giving birth to you. It doesn't matter what it is, but there's reasons to say thank you, be it a beautiful sky, be it another day you woke up and got to enjoy a day of life. That's the point of gratitude. I don't want to belabor that point because I think it's obvious that there's a lot to be thankful for in the world, even when things are bad. You say thank you for the good things in life, and you could even try to say thank you for the bad things in life if you frame it as like, thank you for this challenge, for giving me something to overcome. But that's not something everybody's ready for in their spiritual journey, how they regard their own life. That's just one of the other steps you could take. One of the most common things to say thank you for is food. You know, you can express gratitude at the dinner table. And as an aside, I still have my esoteric health kick, and it's been found that you can prompt the body, the parasympathetic nerve system, anticipates food, and that's part of why you say thank you, and it warms the body up for digestion. So saying thank you, particularly in anticipation for food, can even have health benefits. Of course, when we think about saying thank you and we think about dinner, it's not hard to end up at the Lord's Supper or saying thank you to God, give us this day our daily bread. And that's a pretty common thing. We have the Last Supper, we have saying thank you for food, and all kinds of stuff like that. This brings me to a clip of Duncan Trussell on Joe Rogan where he talks about how when you listen to what Christ says at the Last Supper, he says, whenever you guys get together to eat, remember me.
He did say something really quite beautiful about, which is exactly maybe the sweetest thing you can say to your friend if you're dying, which is, when you eat good food, remember me. And when you drink wine, I'm going to be in that wine. Oh my God. Oh. That's so sweet. It's so beautiful. And it's such an invitation for everybody. Anyone, you can all eat. I'm in your bread. I'm in what the life force itself.
I've been on a journey of faith the past year, over a year, honestly, or you could argue my entire life as well, but it's been a Christian journey as of the past year and a half. I've been going to church, and every week, they give you a little pamphlet. So here is a year and a half of pamphlets here. Maybe not a year and a half, I don't know, but there's a lot of them, and I can lay them out and show what it looks like, but it's been a real treat to go to church, and I'm not here to proselytize, I'm not here to be evangelical. I just want to talk about my journey because I think it's interesting, if you like interesting things, and I think it's important to regard how different people's journeys can be different on their spiritual journey, whatever that looks like. Something really important to me is that my path is not one that I think is necessarily analogous to anyone else's path, and that's why I don't share the story with the intent to have you live in the same way. I am not really bothered by other people not following Christ. That's not my goal, and I find it really annoying. I feel like it's really easy to say no to such things when people are aggressive about it. Like, you need Jesus. If people were telling me that, I probably wouldn't have found Jesus, and maybe that's part of why it took me so long to find it. It had to be a journey I could take on my own. And I just want to talk about, the first few steps of that journey. A really important one for me is kind of like that Duncan Trussell clip. It's important to me that there's levels of how much you go deep with your belief and your faith in whatever it is that you believe. Right now I'm talking about the Bible, I'm talking about Christ. I think that I have specific definitions for belief and faith that I'll get into some other time. Again, this journey of faith is one with multiple steps, and I don't intend to get into all of those steps here. This is just the first one. Maybe I'll make other videos. Maybe this can be a little series. But my point is that I wasn't aware that so much of the stories in the Bible are very strong on their own, independent of historical context. There's the category of belief where you truly do believe that these events are true. And obviously some of them are harder to believe than others, the resurrection, etc. But independent of things actually happening, and I'm not saying that that isn't the case, but something that I think is far easier is treating it as at least a work of fiction on the spectrum from fiction to nonfiction, and how valuable the stories can be. Because I would go to church and you hear these stories, and there's like stories about how to live. There's lessons, there's characters, there's growth, in ways that we can all relate to. There's so many specific anecdotes in the Bible that you might find yourself at in different points of life, and then there's value to having someone digest that story for you, and that's how you end up with a character like a pastor. I say this because I didn't expect it to be like this. I didn't expect faith to manifest this way in my life, and I'd like to draw an analogy that might help people understand how this felt for me last year. So I've made some new friends in the past year, friends of my girlfriend who are now my own friends, but it all started with just being friends with her. And the reason I say that is because they were reading a book called Women Don't Owe You Pretty, and if that title or the images of women showing off their armpit hair is distasteful to you, I can understand, because I wouldn't have been reading this book without them. But they thought it was interesting, and I thought I would challenge myself and look at some ideas that I don't necessarily agree with at face value. As an aside, I treat that as Book Club 0, and now we've had a whole series of book clubs with this particular group, and we're currently reading the book I recommended, and that just shows that things can go, the upper limit of how good things can be when you take a chance is basically boundless. You have no clue, you know? I mean, I could have met my girlfriend's friends and not liked them. I could have said, I don't want to read this book, and then this whole arc would be different, and I'll tie it back to Christ here. But this Women Don't Owe You Pretty book, the title sounds like it's addressed to men, but it's not. It's a book for women. And I was reading it, and there were specific chapters that were about women among women that I truly did get nothing out of besides sort of like a window into that life, because I am not a woman among women. But in general, the book had this theme of ways that you can regard yourself in context to life that were pretty general. I found myself seeing ways I could improve my own life despite this book being about women, by women, for women, etc. And I thought to myself, that's pretty interesting. And at the end of the book, I thought, okay, well, a big chunk of this was how to live a better life as a human, how to prevent mental anguish by framing things in your mind. And that's a category of philosophy that I care a lot about. So much of our struggles are created in our own head, and having frameworks for how to get out of that can be very useful. A huge chunk was that, and then a small chunk was women among women, and or, you know, you have to be careful with the exact framing of this, but it's like, you know, the book wasn't men are evil, but they did source how women's specific struggles can be caused by men. That's not my claim here. The point is that that was a minority of the content. Why am I telling you this? Going to church, I feel like it's really easy as someone outside of church, and I don't want to act like I know everyone's reason for not going to church, and I'm not here to get you in church. I'm just saying I was among the people who thought, you know, I don't really need to be told what to believe. I don't want to, you know, profess faith in these things that I don't necessarily believe in. Some of the things that seem supernatural or too good to be true, things like that. But since going to church for now over a year, it's incredible how much of the experience is about how to be a better person, how to better love yourself, how to better love your neighbors. And then this becomes analogous to that feminist book where 90% of the experience at church is how to be a better person. And then 10% is like, hey guys, because of God and Jesus, am I right? Okay, see you next week. That's how it feels. And it's incredible how valuable that is in isolation. How valuable these stories can be, even if you don't regard them as full. And that's why I consider this a journey of faith. I'm not at the point where I profess belief in faith in all of these things, but I believe enough of it to keep going. And I've been going almost every week for a year now. I think that has value. I think going for an hour and a half without checking your phone each week while listening to someone you can trust, and props to the pastor for having such great energy. Like, I go to hear him. It wouldn't be the same if I was going to another church of the same denomination. And by the way, I'm not naming the church or the pastor or the denomination because I don't think that stuff matters yet. I understand. I'm very interested in the nuances of Catholicism, Protestantism, etc. But I don't care to identify myself with any of them because for me, Christ is enough. That's the long and short of that. And that's how that's been going. Part of what makes me want to make videos is so that I can just talk about what's going on in my life, things I find fascinating, and I think other people will find them fascinating as well. So I think I might make other videos about faith along the way. So I hope you found this interesting. I am not personally incentivized to get other people started on their journey of faith, but I obviously have no opposition to people seeing this video and reconsidering things. If you are open-minded to reconsidering things, I can totally empathize with other paths that make it even harder to come back to church, come to Christ, etc. Maybe you didn't even start there. I know a lot of us were raised in a church and then fell out of it. That was me for sure. I mean, I was totally a fedora-wearing cringe atheist in high school, and I can laugh at that now because that was just a different time in life. And I think, most importantly, I think there are prerequisites that are out of your control to find your way into church. So if you don't have the opportunity to make such choices right now, I can understand that. And I could talk about that at another time, but I don't want to, it would be hours talking about faith here. So that's enough of that. I'm also excited to say at the end of this video that today, the day I'm filming this, I received a job offer that I intend to take. So that job hunt, I'll have some data up on the screen, how many applications it took, how many interviews I got, and I'm just really happy to say that. And this job will not be remote, so maybe that'll mean less videos, maybe that means I really got to crank out a few in May, but I'll be starting in June, and I'm just really happy to share that. So people who are along the way, if anyone actually cares about like my life nuances above and beyond the ideas I'm sharing, you can tell which of those I'm prioritizing. It's the ideas. I don't want people to be like, oh man, what's going on with Joseph? What's going on with Marcus and Jimmy? That's not important. It's the ideas. That's what I'm trying to share here. And here's the part where I risk belaboring the point. So, long story short, I've been going to church for a year and a half, and I don't regret it at all. I like it so much that I had to make at least one video about it. This won't be the last. Please keep your mind open. Second thing, I got a job. How cool is that? Just in time for the severance to end as well. It's crazy. You know, my previous job gave me 2 months of extra paychecks, and it took me about 2 months to find another job. So it seems like life finds a way. To round it all back up, you know, this vessel of gratitude, I don't explicitly give God credit for what happened to me. Something very good happened to me today. I think I deserve some credit for that. But there's still opportunities for gratitude. I am thankful to my family and friends for all the support. I'm thankful for the universe presenting these opportunities. I'm thankful for the downsides of losing your job that turn into an upside where I will be making more at this job and probably be even happier. And maybe that happiness is what leads to using your spare time to make YouTube videos. And maybe if you're schlumping around with no job and no schedule, it's even harder to create despite having more free time. Again, other topics. We're done here. Thank you for watching.